So welcome to the final customer webinar for 2021. We've really enjoyed delivering all of the content this year and are looking forward to taking them to new heights in 2022. Today we're looking at the hot topic of leadership development and specifically how the Tivian Leadership 360 can help support this process. We'll take a light-hearted look at a strong leader who always meets a challenging and on the face of it impossible deadline with a smile on their face whilst maintaining a very engaged and happy team. On presenting duties this month are myself, Jay Hartley, Customer Success Manager for the UK, and I'm joined again by Ludger, who's just taken on a new and exciting role here at Tivian.
Thank you. Yeah, hello from my end, Ludger Kesting, now VP of Product Management. Happy to show you the demo today. And yeah, let's get started, Jay.
So the last few years have seen changes in the way a lot of organizations and individuals work. We're now seeing a shift from a very static and siloed organization with clearly defined career pathways to businesses where people work across the organization in matrix relationships, and individuals are more likely to change roles within an organization or indeed move to a new business in order to experience new challenges. This means that all organizations face the very real risk of losing talent from their workforce. It's therefore essential that organizations spend more time developing their managers as they are central to the engagement of employees. They need to become enablers that can listen to their team, provide support and development opportunities, and help them achieve their goals. And most importantly, they need to empower those employees to do so. This means that the manager development should be a strategic priority, and this needs to be supported by a 360 program, as this is the best way of ensuring that a manager gets rounded feedback on the areas that they may need to develop and also to build on their strengths. Here's a couple of quotes highlighting those from Anderson and Adams and Josh Bursin. So these shifts mean that the tools are going to have to change. The idea of 360 has been around for several years. However, it's always traditionally been a program which has been centrally driven and only delivered to senior managers. They've required lots of HR planning, support and communication, with the aim being that they want to ensure managers identify the right respondents for feedback or for providing feedback. They're like a huge container ship which can pack everything in, but once it's on course, it's impossible to change its route. They take a lot of time to complete, and the timing's not always going to suit all managers. Also, if the route gets blocked, think evergreen, then you might find lots of managers waiting for their feedback or never getting it, which is disappointing for those managers and even worse for your business. The Tivian, the Tivian Leadership 360 is built for the modern workforce. It's an on-demand service, which means managers can pick and choose when they want to get feedback. It is not limited to senior managers. You can choose to add it to everyone's account, and they can take ownership of their own management development. Whilst you can set some relationships in place, such as managers or direct reports using data feeds from your HRS, HR don't need to get involved in selecting the right respondents. Instead, managers get to choose the people they work with regularly, thus ensuring they capture in anyone in their matrix organizations, peers, or even external customers or suppliers. It's much more agile and ensures that managers can pick a time that suits them well. For example, our leader would probably not pick this month to run their 360, but rather a time slot when there is less to be done. So before moving on to the demo, I just wanted to recap some of the key benefits of the Tivian Leadership 360. It's self-driven. So whilst the process is consistent, anyone can run their process when they want to do so, when it's going to work best for them. It's designed to work in the modern organization, and it supports non-hierarchical team structures. It's going to provide instant benefit. If all the managers take ownership of their processes, they're more likely to act on the feedback they gain, which is going to hopefully lead to improved engagement within and across their teams. We've also got a series of supporting products which can further enhance leadership development, such as built-in guidance, action planning and ideation tools. And finally, you can always call upon our team to help you get the most from the platform. I'm going to now hand over to Ludger, and he's going to take us through a demo of the Tivian Leadership 360.
Thank you, Jay. Yeah, with that, let's jump over to the online world, and I share my screen and we go through the demo. Yeah, as Jay said, we today have a look at a very special leader who has now a busy month and a few busy days ahead. And we log into our leadership portal in the role of Santa Claus today, who thinks, yeah, maybe he is busy, but now he has still a week or so to prepare, and he wants to double check that his team is ready to do the job and that he gets the feedback to improve his role in the big project ahead. So let's go in. And Santa has, of course, a login here to our improvement board. We are welcomed here as Santa, of course. Santa has checked that his profile is up to date, that everyone knows where he is located, that his email address is there so that he receives the data that he requires, up to date, picture uploaded, so he's ready to go. Of course, we could now take the standard Tivian approach. These portals can be, of course, customized also to your need, to your maybe end client needs if you work in an agency. And Santa did that and requested this from his elves, of course, to get a personalized view on this, and has a hidden page where Santa is now able to execute feedback initiatives on his own. In this case, we see here our guides. There are a few more ones. He could do a job satisfaction, maybe with his team of workers, elves in the store who worked whole year to produce all the presents. But today he wants to double check if he's a transformational leader, if he's prepared for the big job and the big project ahead. So he's going to start here the transformational leadership guide. And to do that, we can just say we get started, and then we see a little bit information so that Santa can read up on what this is about. There's a summary, there's a detailed methodological model behind it, transformational leadership, based on studies, based on really research. So he can now go into this in detail, read up on this, what all this methodology is about, to make sure that this is really something for a modern leader to improve his skills. Then, of course, there's some guidance on how this works. So I see here he has to invite people, and I can take action later on and follow up and, of course, improve my work here in this role. So let's agree to that. And now Santa can see, hey, what questions do I really ask here? What is part of the survey? And the idea here is, again, that this is based on the transformational leadership model, which is a model that Tivian provides. Of course, there can be other questions. These questionnaires can be customized to your need. If you have the questions, if you want to use questions that follow a little bit different methodology, of course, they can be implemented, but that's not Santa's role in this case here, because he has no time to write questions to decide if this is a 5-point scale or a 6-point scale or something like that. He trusts here the methodology that was put in place to communicate his vision of a fast executed project, to have innovative thinking of how to get this job done so fast in a day around the globe. Of course, that requires inspirational leadership to make sure the team is on board and powered up to fulfill this job. And of course, he should lead by example, be happy, be inspirational to do this. And yeah, of course, develop the team that does the work, the workers, and of course, the reindeers maybe in the end, who deliver an important job here. And of course, this translates to the standard model that this is something that every modern leader, areas that a modern leader should at least cover, and then identify their gaps in specific areas to see where are areas of improvement or where are areas where actually the strengths lie that the person has not identified yet. So let's agree to that and we go to the next step, and now we can invite the team. You see here different roles that are predefined: manager, team, and peers. Those can change depending on the setup. If you work in the industry company, you can say, those are my standard roles. You can define them. There could be something like other, there could be customers or something like that. And if you work for an agency, you can, of course, tailor these to your end client needs and adjust these roles. The people who are in these roles can be either manually identified and selected by the leader here, or they could be predefined by the system, so that the system has in the background a rule that defines in what kind of hierarchical structures the persons are related to each other. And then here for Santa, we would have a suggestion. But in this case, he's a powerful leader. He can decide himself who to invite. And let's just search through the groups. We see we could invite everyone from the North Pole already. But let's say here the manager, even though Santa is the big leader, he doesn't feel as the leader, the manager in a specific role in the delivery of his gifts. So he invites here, for example, Rudolf as his team leader, the pack leader, to provide him feedback as the leading character here in this area. So that's good. That's the manager role in this case. And let's go to the next group, the team. So who is else in the team? There are, of course, others who support this process. There is a few other characters here that we want to invite. There are some reindeers that have a very important job here that we list down. Luckily, they are already imported into the system. It would be possible here now for the Santa to add other people, to invite people who were not part in the system. These people, these reindeer in this case, these employees, these team members were already imported. This can happen manually in the background if you do this from HR perspective. This can also happen with an integration to an HR system, so that the database is always up to date and it's synchronized, so that all the recent employees are in the database available. Let's go to the peers. Maybe he doesn't need everyone in the team directly, but we have here some more helpers that can assist. Let's add Cupid, and let's also add Comet, the most fast one here of the reindeers, and we will also want to have his feedback. There are some email addresses, and now we say next. We can add a special message, and we see here this comes directly from Santa himself. There's an email template in the background that will inform the participants, but of course there should be a little bit of personal flavor from Santa here, and he says like, hey, always a little bit late, but please help me to become a great leader. So that will be then part of the email, but of course he doesn't need to design all this. This will happen, or this always happened in the background. Let's say continue, and now in the background the system will send these mails. Our colleagues here, the team, the reindeers in this case, will receive the invitation and they can take part. Important is, of course, here in the 360 that a self-assessment happens. So how should we be able to compare something, and how should Santa in this case learn something if there's no relationship between these teams? And that's why we have here prominently the self-assessment button to get started. He directly clicks this, and now we have here our transformational leadership survey directly available. Of course, can be in different languages, could also start directly in a different language, but Santa here decided to do this in English today. Different language would of course be no problem for him. But yeah, so then we go here to the questionnaire. We see here these categories from the transformational leadership questionnaire, so communication and vision. So are we good in this? Santa thinks that's something he is actually quite good at innovative thinking. Oh, I think he knows that he's a quite traditional person, always the same project every year, but a little bit innovation maybe is in there, but he confesses that this is maybe not his strength. Leadership, yeah, that's something that he focuses on. Leading by example, absolutely, always a little bit last minute, but he thinks those are his strengths. Support and development, now maybe he's a little bit unsure if he had time to this because he's always busy, and to see then these areas define a little bit the categorization and will be later on compared against what the teams think. Let's quickly go through this, and that's it. For Santa himself here in the role of the leader, there are no open questions, but for the people who participate, there will be also open questions asked. In the survey in the background, there are then filters that identify this and show these additional comments, comment options also to the participants. And they are usually start to do something, stop to do something, and continue to do something. And that then gives some qualitative information, maybe some tips and tricks that are not directly part of this methodological model, but that help to give some deep insights into changes. Okay, so let's go back to the portal here. We see here our overview of the different actions. And in the preparation phase, I already did one case in which the reindeers, the employees, filled out the survey. They usually have, of course, a certain time to do so. Let's maybe go quickly to the status. So once I filled out, or the manager fills out the self-assessment, we usually have then here a time frame of 2 weeks, but this can also be configured in the tool. And we see the different rater groups, if they have responded or not, and then he can track the status. He could invite now others if he wants to, or if he thinks the teams are not responding, he could trigger here manual reminders, even though the system can also send out reminders after a defined time frame. Okay, we filled this already out, so let's have a look at some results. Let's go over to the dashboard, and we see those are the results of Santa Claus. And this is the integrated dashboard solution where we see the response rate. So everyone responded, that's very good feedback results. And then we see the different areas clustered in strength, development areas, and then we can split it by rater groups. And of course, Santa first wants to check what are his strengths. In the system in the background, the system will rank essentially these questions and categories and identify the top strengths and the development area, so the bit weaker rated results. And if we go here, we have here a separation between known strength and hidden strength. Known strengths are areas where, in this case, Santa rates himself relatively high, and also the other groups rate him relatively high. So there seems to be a match, so that we know fostering collaboration, he rates himself high, so that seems to fit. He thinks he's good at that, and also others think that he is good at that. And if we go into the details, we actually can see this in more detail. So who sees this as a strength and who sees this maybe as a development area? He himself thinks, yeah, that's something I can do well. In an aggregated level, that's also the case. The team is very strong and also agrees to that, even though the manager, Rudolf in our example here, thinks that's not maybe necessarily his strength. So we can approach this then differently from the different user groups and can here review maybe this area with Rudolf here and maybe with some peers, but with the team, we are maybe in agreement. And then I can, of course, go into the details and see how the answers are distributed, in this case on a 5-point scale from 1 to 5, but this can be different. These small arrows here that you see, that's the rating by the leader, by Santa himself, and the colored bar, that's the aggregated average score by the person who was involved, or by the people who were invited. I see a few tricks and information here. I can click and double check how this is calculated. Santa Claus has time to read too many manuals, so we have this as inlay information to identify these points directly. Quickly going back to the insights, we have a look at the development areas, so maybe areas that Santa should work on. Oh, and we see here that there is one that actually fits nicely to his expectations. He knows that leading by example, yeah, that's maybe not his best strength, but that's also known to the team. So we see here that the self-perception and the rating by others fits quite well, but we have here a lot of blind spots where the self-perception is different from the ratings, from the rater groups. So relatively high ratings by Santa himself here, communicating the vision, for example, he thinks that's what he covers well, but the others actually say that's not the case. So let's drill into this and double check where we actually should talk, to which user groups we should talk to. And then again, identify how we got here really bad scores from the peers. So whoever we invited there sees this completely different than the manager, Rudolf, the team, and we maybe double check how we interact here with our peers and maybe work on our communication in this area if we think that is important. And one last time back, we can of course evaluate this in a little bit more detail in comparison on one screen in this wonderful heat maps where we see all categories. Oh, if we switch, we can also see all questions on one page, which is of course a long list to exactly see what question is it that was lowest rated, or if we switch it back to on the category level, we see that the manager here, Rudolf, gave really negative feedback in leading by example. So obviously we have not impressed him in our role. So this is something that we should take on with our manager, with the team. We also should include inspirational leadership, which Rudolf doesn't care about because he's such a senior person that he thinks that is all covered with his experience. And this helps then the user to identify the gaps, select topics and work on those. And lastly, we also have some open comments here. As you saw, Santa himself doesn't see those, but the people who provide feedback do. And then I can go through this and see here, like stop doing, continue doing, start doing, and say, what should I stop doing here? So, okay, I should stop to overload people with work, and I have high ambitions. That is very true. I always want to do something here in a day, and I should not rush the work too much in one night. Absolutely right. So even though that's a little bit part of the job, those are some inspirational points that Santa should work on. In the end, of course, there are some actions to be taken. So there can be some action recommendations in this tool, but if Santa would want to, he could now identify some points like inspirational leadership and create this as an action point, and could go to an improvement board and create an action for himself and say inspirational leadership or leadership improvement and communication. This is something to take note of. He can write down his thought. He sees he's assigned to this, and he can share this with others, with groups or with users. And then, for example, he could double check if there is Rudolf again and he wants to discuss it with him. Now, if Rudolf logs into such a portal, he first of all gets a notification now, and he can also now brainstorm with Santa, with the manager, comment something, say maybe what should be done, how to run this project better, how should they collaborate better together. And this can be then handled over time, moved to an ongoing area. They can collect information, and when it's in the review phase, maybe they change something jointly. Now it's time to rate these actions, and then everyone this action is shared with, so in this case Santa and Rudolf, can go in and say, hey, this was actually had a big impact, this improved something for next Christmas, or it was actually not so helpful. And in the end, they can learn from this, and in next year maybe take the actions that were really highly rated and directly review those. This would stay now here until Rudolf, in this example, logged in and rated this action as well. Yeah, and that concludes our small, interesting leadership. Santa's now, I think, ready for Christmas, has a week to improve. And it's, of course, not just for Santa. This could help all leaders to get feedback and improve and identify the areas to not just broadcast across all topics. And with that, maybe back to you, Jay, and ready for some questions.
Thanks very much, Luca. Very interesting insight into the workings of Santa's mind, and hopefully he does improve on any areas he needs to over the course of the next year. So we've just got one question in at the moment from Agnes, and it's related to the wording of the questions. So can the wording be adapted for the self-assessment and the non-self? So kind of put it in a more personal perspective. So like I give feedback rather than gives.
Yes, that's possible. So that there are different wordings, so that for the respondents, for the teams, the name is shown, so that you say they see Santa is doing this and that. And then for the person who provides a self-assessment, that they see then a different wording, like you do or something like that, or you think about yourself. So yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Any other questions? Just give you another moment. Looks like we're good. Oh, there is one more question from Luke. Where is the question set found? Is this a template set up in EFS or a module created in portals?
It is set up in EFS, so it's a personalized survey in the background, and there are just like a few more buttons to click in the properties of the survey to make it available as a guide in a portal. So you can create any kind of survey. This is just one example, the Leadership 360. You can, of course, also have other surveys that are not that complex. It depends a little bit on the dashboard types. We provide this Leadership 360 template which follows this methodology, but there can be also simpler, standardized, personalized surveys be made available as a guide, and nothing to change. So if you know EFS, then you can prepare any personalized survey as a guide.
That's great. Okay, doesn't look like we've got any more questions in. So all it says, all that's left for me is to just say thank you very much for joining, and we hope that you can celebrate across this festive season as best you can in what appear to be yet more challenging times that we're facing into. So stay safe, and yes, best wishes.